Hi, it's Mike here from fretjam.com, and today we're going to be learning a really simple and effective way of discovering new and interesting chords on your guitar. Now, you may or may not be familiar with the technique I'm about to show you, but either way, I hope you learn something new from this. First of all, I just want to clarify that this won't be in a typical video guitar lesson format. You won't actually see me sitting with my guitar, and the reason for this is not because I'm camera shy or have an arse for a face, but when it comes to learning chords, I think you'll find the diagrams I use far clearer, and they'll show you how chords are formed from your point of view, how you see the fretboard. So grab your guitar and let's go and discover some interesting and unique guitar chords. In those first few months of picking up the guitar, the first chords you'll have most likely learned are those 5 open position chords down at the first few frets. And here they are: E major, A major, D major, C major, and G major. Now, these should all be familiar to you if you're beyond the absolute beginner stage, but if not, use the links in the description on the right to learn those primary open chords and some of their basic variations like minor, major 7th, and dominant 7th, etc. The reason you need to know these is because we're going to use some of these open chord shapes in different positions to create new open chords. Now, when we talk about open chords, what we really mean is chords that use both fretted strings and unfretted strings, known as open strings. Because of the open strings, open chords have that vibrancy that sounds really warm and lush. The other main type of chord is known as a movable chord or bar chord, although not all movable chords involve a barred finger. Anyway, so we're going to be using these familiar open chord shapes we learn as beginners up and down the neck to create more interesting chord voicings. So let's start with a practical example. First, just make sure you've numbered your fingers 1 to 4. Now, here's the basic A minor open chord. All we're going to do is move our fingers up a couple of frets, keeping that same formation. The A string and high E string will remain open as they are in the A minor position. So let's take a listen. So already we've got quite a nice new chord voicing there. Even though we're using the A minor shape with our fingers, the chord itself is no longer A minor because we've moved out of that position. What the new chord is not really important to know at this stage. Rather, I just want you to use your ears to discover new chords that you like the sound of. You can always go into the chord theory behind it at a later date. So that's the basic idea. We're floating these finger formations up to new positions on the fretboard while still keeping the original open strings as they are. Now we can also do the same with the A major shape and mix it with movements using the minor shape. For example, I could use that familiar A major fingering at the 5th fret to get a very different sound. So that's 2 new chords we've essentially discovered in the past couple of minutes, simply by nudging those familiar open chord forms up the neck. When trying these shapes out at new fret positions, trust your ears as to what works and what doesn't. They won't sound great at every fret. Okay, let's now try applying this method to other open chord shapes we know to expand our chord library even more. Let's now have a look at the open E major chord, which again you should be familiar with. If not, it's all on fretjam.com. So, using the same technique we did with A minor and major shapes, let's try moving that 3-fingered E shape up the fretboard. If I move it just 1 fret up, here's what we get. A rather Spanish flamenco sounding F major chord. If you wanted to include that low E string bass note, it needs to follow the chord shape wherever you move it. So basically, you fret it in its normal power chord or bar chord position 2 frets below the A string fret, like this. Obviously, I'll need to change my fingering to accommodate this. Now, this shape can be used in quite a few positions. For example, it seems to work on the first fret, which is what we've just seen, the second fret, F sharp, the third fret, G, fifth fret, which gives us a very nice modification of the A major chord, seventh fret, B major, eighth fret, C major, 10th fret, D major, and then we're back at E major at the 12th fret, also known as the octave. So that's a lot of new major chords to add to our library. We can use these in our songwriting to replace the more basic open or bar chords. Personally, I love using these floating chord shapes because by including open strings in your chords, you can find voicings that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get with your typical run-of-the-mill bar chords. And how simple was all that? So try using this technique with other open chord shapes you know. Try it with the major, minor, and any other forms that you know. I mean, that's a lot of new chords to discover right there. Let's just look at one final chord shape using the E minor open shape. So if, like before, we move the shape up a couple of frets, we'll potentially have a new chord. However, sometimes you need to use a bit of improvisation and modify the shape slightly to make them sound more compatible with the open strings. In this case, I'm simply going to change my fingering so it's my third and fourth fingers fretting the A and D strings. Then I'm going to position my first finger on the G string 2 frets below my third and fourth. These 3 strings provide us with the basic minor triad. I'm also going to leave out the low E string because it'll just muddy up the chord in most cases, but I'll still leave the top 2 strings open as they are in the original E minor position. That's a nice dreamy F sharp minor variation there, and it's all because we've left the open B and high E strings resonating through the chord. Like before, trust your ears to pick out which positions work for this shape. At some frets, it'll sound pretty nasty or incompatible, but at others you'll get some really beautiful voicings, such as at the 5th fret, the 5th fret being where the low E string root note would be if we were including it, say in a minor bar chord. At some positions, you'll even be able to create major voicings, even though we're essentially using a minor shape. This is because as soon as you move the shape out of its original E minor position, it becomes a new chord. Calling it a minor shape is just a convenient label. You could call a shape anything you want as long as you memorize it visually. Now, I could have gone quite deeply into guitar chord theory in this video, but I didn't want to overwhelm you with too much info. The main thing is that you experiment with the different chords you can create using this technique. Note down any interesting discoveries you make, and most of all, have fun with it. Hopefully, you'll join me in the next part where we'll dig deeper into this technique to mine tons of new and unique chords all over the guitar neck. Most of these chords you won't find on standard guitar chord charts or in chord books, so it's really valuable. In the meantime, pay a visit to fretjam.com. There's a lot of stuff on there to help you with chords, theory, and other aspects of learning guitar. Alright, cheers, see you later.